Welcome back to the Faith and Work podcast. I'm your host, Carole Evans, and I'm really excited that you're here. This season is all about faith-driven entrepreneurs, ordinary people who said yes when God placed an extraordinary idea on their heart. Together, we'll hear their stories behind businesses, ministries, books, and creative callings that were born out of faith, obedience, and trusting God one step at a time. If you've ever felt God nudging you towards something that seemed impossible, or if you've ever had an idea that made you wonder, who am I to do something like that? This season is for you. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to Callie. Callie is a teacher and a writer whose journey reminds us that God plants dreams long before we understand them. Throughout the conversation, you'll hear how the Lord used ordinary moments and unexpected circumstances and faithful obedience to lead her to write the books that He had already placed on her heart. I left this conversation personally encouraged in my own walk with Christ, and I believe that you will do the same. Whether God is calling you to start a business or write a book or begin a ministry or simply just take the next step, Callie's story is a reminder that God equips those that He calls. So grab your favorite cup of coffee, settle in, and let's go meet Callie. Hello and welcome to the Faith and Work podcast. I'm your host, Carole Evans, and I cannot wait for you to meet Callie. Callie, thank you so much for joining us today. And I would love to have you introduce yourself to our audience and let us know, if you're meeting someone for the first time, what do you want them to know about you?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you and to get to meet the audience. I'm Callie. I am an author of 3 books. I'm a writer for Crosswalk.com and The Rooted Truth, and I've been a school teacher for officially 10 years now.
Wow. Okay, let's dive into that. So tell me about your teaching and what do you teach and kind of where has that journey been for you in the teaching field?
It's been a wild ride, I will say that. I never really expected to be a teacher, though I think growing up, everyone kind of saw that in me. I remember even just being in high school and almost this assumption that I was going to be a teacher from like family members. And it was weird because I almost then was turned off to it. I was like, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. Even though I went to school, I did English and I did a lot of things that were geared towards teaching. But when I graduated college, I went to work for Apple actually for 2 years. And that was a great job. And it was when I was working for Apple that there was actually a moment that was really that light bulb moment. And the person who typically would handle field trips that would come into the store, it's a very interactive store. And so we would have groups either from small clubs or in this case, it was a Girl Scout troop came in. And the person who normally did them was gone. And so they said, Callie, we'd like for you to do the field trip today. And so I headed up the field trip and I taught the kids how to make calendars and iPhoto. And there was a moment, there were 3 girls in the Girl Scout troop. And unfortunately, 2 of the girls started picking on one little girl because she brought her Barbie doll. And it's almost like it's burned in my brain, just that moment, seeing them pick on her. And I was that little girl with the Barbie doll. And I had this empathy rise in me. But then I stopped and I realized, oh, I can actually do something about this now. You know, when I was a kid, I was the small one. I was always the shortest. And so there was nothing I could do. And so instead of coming and fussing at the girls or being, you know, this dictator and saying, no, this will not be how it is in this classroom. Instead, I came alongside and I said, oh my gosh, I love your doll. I had one just like it. Can I see it? And the other 2 girls, wanting to be popular, wanting to be cool with the Apple Store employee, were like, oh, well, I have one too. It's just in my backpack. And it was in that moment that the whole atmosphere changed. And I went home and I thought, God, oh my goodness, that was an experience. And through prayer journaling, He said, it's time to teach. And that changed everything for me. And so I pursued a career in teaching. And so this is my 10th school year officially going into. School years are weird because they're like half-seas on calendar years. But it's wild to think about that. So I teach U.S. history, Western civilization, but over the course, I've also taught English, elementary Spanish, home ec, so all kinds of things.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. So this part of the season, the part of the faith and work season that you're on is really all about faith-driven entrepreneurs. And I would love for you to talk about, you and I were talking earlier about the journey of your first book and
Hmm.
how God really used everything. It's so funny how he used the Apple experience to prepare you for teaching and then
Totally.
teaching to prepare you for writing. And so I'd love to have you kind of share that experience of using where you were in teaching and then what did that look like going into your first book?
I'd love to. Well, it was also at the Apple Store. I was part of a Bible study, and one of my coworkers, he was great. He was one of those people that he can see things in you that you might not see in yourself.
Yeah.
And we were working one day, he says, and this is even before the whole teaching thing ever came up, and he said,
Yeah.
Callie, you should work with kids. And I was like, okay. And he said, I'm a youth group leader. You should come in my church and just hang out with the high school girls. And so I thought, well,
Mm.
okay, because
Yeah.
I trust him. So
Yeah.
when I had the best time, I loved hanging out with them. I thought it was wonderful. And so I started at my own church working
Yeah.
with the youth and the high school girls. And that was at the same time, thereabouts, that I started teaching as well. And so I had quite the fill of teenagers for the
Yeah.
first few years of my
I
teaching
bet.
career. And I have always had kind of this open door office policy where
Yeah.
the girls know that they are safe to come in. And I had a coffee maker. They could make some coffee, have some
I'm sure they love
discount.
that.
Oh yeah, any discount candy I had gotten at
Mm-hmm.
Target, they were welcome to as well. But we'd have these heart conversations, and it was such a beautiful thing. And what I saw through it was this common thread of we're not so different, you and I. Some of the things that I had faced as a teenager, even as an adult, they were
Yeah.
facing, and really recognizing with Gen Z especially, they have been thrust into this social media world, and they've really been called to grow up so fast.
Yeah.
And that it's heartbreaking, but you can't stay there and just be like, "Oh, that's sad for them."
Right.
And
Right.
so I started ferociously looking for resources. What is something I could go, beyond my office, right? To
Yeah.
bless them or to be an asset to them. And I just couldn't seem to find something that quite hit the nail on the head. There were
Yeah.
great resources, but it seemed
Yeah.
like they were written by women who were meant well, but they were decades out of being a teenager.
Yes.
Or it just skimmed the surface
Mm-hmm.
and it was a little too peachy keen. And so
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to write something that would really be like a big sister book. And that was
Yeah.
where my first book was birthed, Hang in There Girl. And it's real life advice from a big sister in Christ
I
is
love
the
that.
subtitle, but that's the heart and that's the core of it, is
Yeah.
it's meant to encourage girls as they're growing up, things that they might not have a big sister to ask.
Oh man, I love that. So when you and I were talking about this first book, and I have a Kanban board behind the camera where it's like all my plans and to-dos and then things that I've already done. And a book is on the list, but it's not happened yet. I've not written anything yet. But that journey of writing a book and pouring so much into it, tell me about how that worked for you of writing it, putting it on paper, and it didn't take off at first the way that maybe you hoped or thought that it would. So tell me a little bit about that journey to kind of get it off the ground.
It was a cool journey, and that I started going through little blogs I had written
Yeah.
or different ideas I had or things that I had heard the girls say and I
Yeah.
had written down, and I poured it all out into this draft. And I had sent it to a few publishers hoping, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
It's not a common field,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like you just go on Indeed and
Yeah.
there's there's a job opening
Right.
for author. So that was okay, and so I was like, well, I guess I'll just self-publish this, because I don't
Yeah.
really, I had contacted some publishers and didn't hear back, or God knows. And And it sold a few hundred copies, and I thought that was the end of the story, and I was
Yeah.
more than happy with it. And it was about 2 or 3 years later, I was on vacation with my family, and we were actually on this ferry boat, and my mom walked up to me. She said, "You know, I was praying for you the other day, and I don't think God's done with hang in there, girl." Or, well, actually, at the time, it had a different title. And
Mm.
I said, "Okay, I mean, I don't know. I thought I
Yeah.
did. I thought I fulfilled that, you know."
Yeah.
And she said, "No, I just don't think God's done with it." And so I prayed about it, and I sent it to one more publisher. And 6 weeks later, I had a book deal, and they wanted to publish it, and I was blown
Wow.
away. And so
Yeah.
I always have to give credit to my mom for just the kindness of her prayers and her
Yeah.
follow through of sharing that journey,
Yeah.
or what she had received in prayer to set me on that journey.
Yeah. That's awesome. So tell us about the other books that you've written and kind of where those were birthed.
Okay, so one of my favorite stories to share is actually how book number 2 came to be. When I got the contract for the first book, they said that they would like to have 3 books in total. And there was no definitive time set on that either. It could, be a year, it could be several years. And I have this practice, and every morning when I'm getting ready for the day, I don't sleep with my phone next to me unless I know someone's going through an emergency.
Yeah.
Phone's on the other side of the room. I do my best not to touch it until
Mm-hmm.
about a half hour, an hour after I'm awake.
Well, I love that.
And I make my coffee, and I just am present with the Lord.
Mm.
And whether that's me talking or
Mm-hmm.
listening, a little of both.
Yeah.
And this one particular morning, it was before school started, I was just listening, and I felt the Lord whisper to me, "What would you think of writing a book about your letters?" And I, of course, knew what that meant,
Mm-hmm.
but I I didn't necessarily give him an answer. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see."
Yeah.
Well, well, 24 hours later, we were currently in the editing process. So when you write a book with being traditionally published, you go through an extensive edit process where you have your draft, and then you work with an editor for those final tweaks and everything that needs to be changed. And I had included a small section because I had done this practice with my youth girls and with some of the high school girls, of sharing, of intentionally praying for their future husband by intentionally writing letters to him, and kind of a Dear John letter, message
Yeah.
in a bottle kind of thing. And so I knew what God was referencing that day before, but
Yeah.
24 hours later, I get a very curious email. And in the email, my publisher said, "You had this paragraph about this practice that you do with these letters. I'd love to hear more. And what would you think if that was the sequel?"
Wow.
And when I tell you, man, I had to scoop my jaw off the ground
Yeah.
because I knew
Wow.
exactly what I was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
do. And it was so clear that the Lord had given me that heads up 24 hours
Wow.
prior. And so it began the process of getting those letters
Mm-hmm.
in a place where I was comfortable with writing a book about it. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're not the photocopied letters, they're not
Yeah.
verbatim. It's actually the collection of several women's stories or journeys and things like that
Mm.
collectively put into a book to help guide and encourage a young woman or a woman of any age
Yeah.
who believes God has a spouse for her and
Mm-hmm.
has planted that dream in her heart, on how to intentionally pray and steward this time, and
Yeah.
also realize that as the church, we are the
Mm-hmm.
bride of Christ.
Yeah.
So God has already given us his best spouse for us through
Mm.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And as the bride, how can we align that? And that helps secure us that
Mm.
as women, as the church, that we are not placing an idol or a
Mm.
hierarchy, right, with
Yeah.
that human spouse, but
Yeah.
instead recognizing he's a son of God, and I have
Yeah.
the opportunity, whether I know his name or not, to lift him up
Mm-hmm.
in prayer.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful, Kelly. I love that. I think there was a lot of early years in our marriage when I definitely, um, idolize is an interesting word because it is accurate, but I wouldn't have called it that at the time.
Hmm.
And I assumed that if I was having a bad day, it was his responsibility to fix that. Or if I'm struggling spiritually, that's all on him to fix that in me. And my relationship with God was secondary, and it should have been primary.
Yeah.
And I think I knew the facts, I knew what to do, but just got in the groove of life. And when we do that, we're really setting humans up for failure before they even get started.
Yeah.
And it's like it gives them no room to be human. And we expect out of them something only God can give us. So I love that on the front end. And I'm right now thinking about, I have 5 amazing nieces. And I was just thinking about all of your books. And I was like, well, I know what all of them are getting for Christmas. They're getting all of Callie's books because
I love
that sounds amazing. And
that blesses me.
I love my nieces, but I'm thinking about all these things you're saying. And I'm like, oh, they need this too. This is so good. So tell me about that. So how did that process work with your second book? And then tell me about the third.
So the second book, it was wild, and that I then kind of started to have an assumption like, oh, well then, I'm not married. God will send the husband during that process. And he didn't. And that was okay, because I think that is what makes the book different. But I think it does land it, just as we were saying, that Christ is first, and he ought to be in that place where he is Lord, and the idea of marriage or marriage itself is not lording over my life. And that journey offered me that opportunity, but I was also able to input that in that book as well. And then from there, the third book, I really wanted to write something as kind of an offshoot as well from Hang In There Girl, but maybe for people who were not in their teens, or early 20s. And they might be struggling with their identity in Christ. And I think we in the church, we often throw around terms like, oh, well, my identity is in Christ. And that's great, but that's just the threshold of the door.
Right.
Who did he make you to be? Right?
Yes.
That's wonderful. That's great. Good to hear. Tell me more.
Right.
And then they stop and they're like,
I don't know.
I have a collection of Bible verses that, I'm chosen. Okay, tell me how. They tell me an experience, and I wanted to create almost like a workbook of encouragement to bloom in who God made you to be, so that you don't just stay at the threshold of that door, that you go in the house and that you occupy it, you fill it, you live it to the fullest. And that's really where the wallflower that bloomed came from. And
that's what the third one is called?
That's what the third one's called. The
wallflower that bloomed. Oh my goodness, I love that title.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
It's been beautiful to see. It was actually interesting in that a demographic I did not expect it to resonate with was actually that of my parents' generation. And I was on a podcast. This was when the book first had come out. And I turned on my camera, and the 2 ladies interviewing me did a double take. And I said, is everything okay? And they said, we thought you were in your 60s. And I said,
wow.
Excuse me? I said,
wow.
The way you write and this book, we thought you were a boomer. And
wow.
And I actually took that as such a high compliment, because I realized it resonated with a demographic that I did not expect, but it gave them kind of almost like this permission. Sometimes in order for us to do something, we almost need to be told, you're allowed to do this. And I realized the need there in my parents' generation, and that produced more empathy for me, even with them understanding kind of the culture or some of the aspects of what they grew up in, of that permission mindset. And so I was grateful that could be a conduit. So,
I love that. I've got a little fly in here with me. There was, I think it was last year, maybe it was last summer, I had several different meetings with a life coach. And one of the first weeks, she asked me to do something that was a lot more difficult than I anticipated it would be. And she said, write down, I think it was 10 to 20 things about you that you either like about yourself or that are God-given abilities in you, but that are not like your roles. They're not what you do, but it's just part of you. I was like, oh, okay. And it felt so awkward to write things down that you like about yourself. It felt like, oh, this is weird, But then when you look at that list and you think, wow, God made me to be all of these things, and he has a plan to use all of them in my
Exactly.
identity in him. And it's not an accident. I don't have a certain talent or ability or a certain love or empathy on accident. And he made me like that. And I think those are such a beautiful practice to understand that who God made us to be is so much more than what we do. I love being a mom, but my identity every day can't be just found in my kids. I can't have my kids try to fulfill my identity for me. And when we do that, we put the same thing as we do in marriage. We put this undue pressure on a role in our life that God never meant for them to fulfill. And so they bring out all of the empathy that I have, or they bring out my shortcomings and my strengths. And I have to run back to the Father and say, I need more help because I can't do this. And that's a beautiful thing. But my identity can't be found in any role that I have. And for years, my identity was found in my job, because in the early days of being a mom, it was really, really hard. And I felt like I was failing every day. I felt like I thought it would just be easier. I thought they would be born and I would just know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you do. And then sometimes you don't, and you don't know what to do. And I thought, how come other moms don't struggle the way I struggle? And the truth is we all struggle, but at the time it didn't feel like that. And I think there's so many things that are happening in our life, that whether it's our jobs or our marriage, our kids. I was at a women's retreat and I asked them to do the same practice. And I said, write down 10 things about yourself, but not what you do. And some of the women couldn't write down anything. And it was that same demographic that you're talking about.
Mm.
And they had a really hard time. And one of them said, I don't know who I am.
Wow.
I'm just a grandmother.
Wow.
And I said, but you're a very loving grandmother. Your grandkids. And they were all in the room and they're like, what do you mean? You're amazing. And so they were all pouring into her.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes so hard to see that part of us and to think that we are more
Yes.
than just that role. And we really, really are.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm,
And it's
I love
recognizing
that.
too, it's not a conceit, right?
Right.
By
Yeah.
wearing those things, but instead it's a confidence. It's that inner confidence of saying, like you said, this is who I am, and God made me to be this.
Yeah.
And I'm glorifying him by living that out vibrantly. That's a form of worship that I'm using those talents well. I'm not burying them.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I love that.
I love that you did that with those women, and that's real change.
Yeah. The results surprised me. And I really, in the moment, I just thought everyone would write down their things, and then we would all talk about them. And I had no idea the struggle that they would have with just being able to write 10 things down. Man alive, God, like this is a need more than I even realized this is a need. When it was a small group, we rented a cabin, probably 25 women, and over half of them didn't know what to write. They couldn't write anything down. And so I love that you wrote that, because I feel like that message needs to be out there in every age demographic. We need to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, you're kind of juggling now because you're still teaching and you are still writing. So tell me what that balance looks like for you right now.
Limited social life. No, but it has for a few years. I did have kind of a revelation of that about a year ago, of just how fast life can go, but also how much it is to juggle, and recognizing kind of that balance of understanding. I think as Americans, we look at work-life balance a lot differently because that balance is not always present.
Yeah.
I think other parts of the world, they have these 6-week vacations customary. They have all these different things. And so we judge ourselves by our productivity, but then we
Yeah.
also judge ourselves by our lack of rest.
Mm.
But I think we're missing the mark, and that we need to ask God, is in this current season, right? What is the portion and pace that you have for me?
Yeah.
Because some seasons his portion and pace might not be that you have equal parts of working, resting, socializing, things like that. It might be pedal to the metal. Hey, this
Mhm.
is going to be a really busy season, but it's a good one. And other
Mhm.
ones, he has more opportunity for that. So for me personally, as a writer and a teacher, it's been a lot, but I think learning how to adapt to
Mhm.
that, to those waters has
Yeah.
been a huge thing. And seeing like in real time how that looks,
Mhm.
but also going with the flow that if God shifts or moves something in my life, the willingness and not bucking it, not being
Yeah.
stubborn or saying, no, that's not how it's been done. It needs to stay the
Mhm.
same. But it's saying, okay, then I'm going to trust you that you have more consideration and care for the timing of my life than I even do.
Mm.
So you know what's right in that. And so I think it's really checking in with him for that
Mhm.
pace and portion. But then also looking at how can I put out what is best
Yeah.
in this time and also communicate well to what
Mhm.
I have bandwidth for.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That is something that I feel like I will learn that lesson. And then 6 months later, he has to remind me again. It's like a tap on the shoulder, like, "I thought we talked about this." I'm like, "I know, I know." And so that is something I feel like I am constantly having to reevaluate because that season of life shifts, and I am still very active in my corporate role. I'm still full-time there and is trying to have an active podcast and still very active as a mom and a
Hmm.
wife and a daughter and a sister and all those other roles in my life. And so really trying to make sure that I show up the way that God needs me to show up to each of those relationships. And again, not putting anything back on that pedestal that God needs to be on. And so
Totally.
as we're pouring out to all those other things in our life, what methods have you and what methods do you encourage other people to pour into themselves when they're actively trying to create something God gave them to create and they're working a job? How do you pour back into yourself to make sure that you are staying full and you're not drying out in your faith during this time?
I think taking every opportunity you can to be present with the Lord is one of the biggest facets of that.
Yeah,
And we don't always have to look at it in the way of, oh, well, the only way I can pray is if, kitchen table, Bible next to me, journal next
yeah,
to me. But I love encouraging people to take the practice of really, as Paul says, pray without ceasing. And
yeah,
so inviting him into those free thoughts. If you're
yes,
driving down the road and you're thinking about things just in your own conscience, invite the Lord into that. Make that a
mm,
conversation instead of
yeah.
just a singular, back and forth of your mind. Say, Lord, what say you? I'd like to
Oh, that's
invite you
good.
into this.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'll find in that process is not only that catharsis of getting to process with the Lord, but also that renewal that comes because we get filled back up by returning. We are from Him. He
Yeah,
created us, right? So He is our source. He is our source of life, of truth, of
yeah,
well being. And so we can fill back up when we tap more into the source, which is God, which sounds kind of weird, but
yeah,
in application, what you'll find is the more present you are with him, the less stressful you'll be in other places.
yeah,
And so I think checking in with him is a way to keep your cup filled. I think also too prioritizing the things that really make you happy. And in the way, right? We want to say that in a healthy way, not in a
yeah.
destructive way or debauchery or anything. But I
Right,
mean,
right.
if a half hour really makes you happy of going on a walk, go on
Yeah,
a walk. Take that
yeah,
half hour and take that and do that for you. Leave the phone at home or put it
yes,
on stun and enjoy that and being present with other people. If your cup is filled in those ways, taking those and not looking at them as the candy bar that's only a treat that you get every so often, but looking at it, no, this is actually something like food, right?
hmm
Like a fruit that I
yeah,
am consuming because I know this is good for me. And this is going to help my body and my
yeah,
mind and my spirit long term. So I am learning to do that better for myself with
yeah,
some of those places. But I think you do find that you come back more refreshed. And then when you do get back to work, you are in such a healthier mindset that you can
yeah,
actually offer better to other people and those around you because you took that half-hour walk, because you took, 45 minutes and you listened to your favorite podcast, things
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I love my drive time in the car.
Hmm.
Um, there's some days on the way to work when I will listen to a podcast, and then sometimes the podcast will say something, and I just have to pause it. I'm like, God, we have to talk about this. Whether it's an idea that comes up or something that I'm struggling with, there's a passage I'm studying. So I love that, inviting him into our thoughts and
Hmm.
saying, what say you? I love that you said that. I think that's such a beautiful way to invite him in and to say, is this thought from you? Is this
Yes.
ego? Is this the devil? Is this a distraction, or is this really from you? That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Callie, thank you so much for just talking through your journey and sharing that with us. We're definitely going to link your books on Amazon, or what's the best way for people to find you?
Everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Christian
Okay.
Book. Yeah.
Awesome.
All
Okay,
the
we'll
major
link all
places.
of that in the show notes. Everyone can find your books. Is there another way that you like to connect with people, like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn? What platform are you more active on right now?
Probably most on Instagram,
Okay.
and then my website too. I love getting, emails from
Yeah.
people and connecting with them, and I love hearing stories and journeys from there too. So those are all great places. I'm also on Facebook and Substack as well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Callie, thank you for joining us. I would love to have you close us
Thank
out
you.
just with a word of prayer over people who there is an idea birthed in them. And it's really scary to kind of take that step. And it's like, what if no one picks it up? And what if? And so I love even the part of your story where you talked about it kind of staying on the shelf for a year or two. And then your mom saying, I don't know if God's done with that. And there's so many things in our life that God's just not done with. And we can look at it and be like, but nothing's happening. And so I just love those parts of your story that you shared. I think
Thank you.
it's just so encouraging and so important for us to realize as entrepreneurs that God's timing isn't always the same as our timing. And
Amen.
his plan is always the same as our plan. So I would love for you just to kind of pray over those who have an idea and just keep praying about what God would have them to do with it.
Lord, I just want to thank you so much for the listeners today. And I want to lift up a particular person or persons who are listening. And this podcast resonated a lot because there are things within their spirit that they know you have planted. It's a holy feeling that it's set apart. It's not like anything else that they've felt of a desire or an idea because they know it's something that has this path back to you. That almost it is too good to be true because it could only be true if it's done with you. And so, Father, I just pray that you would give them courage. I pray that they would move in partnership with you at your timing, your pace, your precision. And Lord, that you would give them instruction, but that they would have hearts lean to seek your face for instruction. I want to thank you for them, Lord, and I pray that if they are lacking in any way, that you would supply them with what they need. And I pray that you would remind them that the world needs them for who you created them to be. The world needs them for such a time as this, and the world needs what you placed in them to be birthed. So Lord, we just thank you. We praise you for this person, and I pray that they will take that leap of faith, but they will do it while holding your hand. In Jesus' name, amen.
What an encouraging conversation with Callie. I hope today's episode reminded you that the dreams God has placed in our heart are never accidental. He sees the entire journey long before we do. And often the experiences we don't understand today become the very foundation for the purpose that he reveals tomorrow or the next day. If Callie's story encouraged you, I have a favor to ask. Would you mind to leave a rating or review? It only takes a minute, but helps a lot more people to find these conversations. Be sure to check out today's show notes. You will find the link to all of Callie's books along with her website and social media accounts. If you know someone who's sitting on a dream because they think it's just too big or too impossible, or that God could never use them, would you please share this episode with them? It might be the encouragement they need to take the step of faith towards the next thing. Until next time, don't forget Colossians 3:17. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Thank you for listening to the Faith and Work podcast, where we help everyday people live out extraordinary faith in their everyday work. I'll see you next Tuesday.